Hey everybody, welcome to a new video. Today we're going to talk about, are 2.8 lenses worth it? Yes or no? Let's go. Right, so obviously the main difference between a 2.8 lens and an f4 or 5.6, for example, is the price. I'm not going to waste too much time discussing price differences. What I am going to talk about in this video is what are the differences that justify that price difference. Hopefully this video will help you decide whether or not that price difference is worth the investment that you will get from a 2.8 versus say an f4 or a 5.6. Okay, so let's put the price factor aside. Now let's talk about the two main factors that I think are worth it for investing in a 2.8 lens. One is the most obvious one, which is the amount of light that you get using a 2.8, say versus an f4, where you gain one stop of light, and versus a 5.6, where you gain two stops of light. Needless to say, if you shoot at nighttime games with poorly lit stadiums, what will suffer in your pictures? Your ISO. It'll need to go up to compensate to properly expose the picture, and as such you will get noisier pictures. If you have a 2.8, your ISO won't have to go as high to keep the same exposure, and therefore your pictures will have less noise. I'm not even going to discuss quality differences between a 2.8 and an f4 and a 5.6. I'm assuming we're talking about L series lenses, so the quality should be there in all three of them. I'm just talking about the amount of light that you get. The other factor that you get with a 2.8 that you do not get with a 5.6 is a shallower depth of field, because you're using a much wider aperture. The plane of focus is going to be a lot more shallow, and therefore the background is just going to be blown away much faster with a 2.8 than an f4 or a 5.6. What does that make? It makes the subject pop out of the picture much more, and it avoids distracting objects in the background. Obviously, positioning and choosing your background and whatnot, you can make it work with any lens, but technologically speaking, if you have a wider aperture, you don't need to worry as much, so to speak, with the background with a 2.8 than you would with say a 5.6. So to recap, those are the main two factors for me that actually make a difference between a 2.8 and an f4 or a 5.6. So the amount of light that you get and the background separation. There are other factors obviously that you could take into consideration, such as the weight. For example, the 2.8 is really heavy, so I need to use a monopod at all times. Whereas when I used to have the 100 or 400 5.6, I could handhold the lens throughout the whole game. I would not have to use a monopod. It's a lot more versatile, it's a lot lighter in the bag, so there's that weight difference that's massive. To some people the mobility is very important, so if you don't care too much about the rest and the weight is something that you value too much, then obviously you don't need to go with a massive big lens, because it's going to be much heavier. Other factors that you could look into is the image quality. Again, I'm assuming we're talking about L series lens, so the quality difference won't be too much. Another one is the focusing speed. I don't think that should be an issue with any of these L series lenses, to be honest. Neither is the quality of the pictures. We're talking about essentially the amount of light you can get into the lens and the background separation. Obviously, because of the physics that is required to build a lens with those elements, that's where the money goes into, and that's why we're paying a lot more money for a 2.8 than an f4 or a 5.6. Last but not least, remember the lenses are not the only thing that will affect the quality of a picture. The camera is just as important, and in my opinion even more important is the person behind the camera. If you know what you're doing, you'll get good results with any lens and any camera. Obviously, if technology is what's stopping you from progressing, then the upgrade might be worth it. Before you buy a lens, consider buying it used, because the savings you will get are massive. I've made a video about buying used versus new versus gray market. Check it out, and maybe it'll help you decide on your next purchase. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope this video was useful. If you liked it, click that thumbs up Subscribe to the channel if you aren't already, and until next time, take it easy. Bye bye.